This is the Real Estate Investing 365 podcast, your go-to source for real estate investing strategies so you can start living the life you want and get where you want to go. With your host, Justin Hanna.
Everybody, welcome to the show. Ryan Dossie is here with us today. He is now in, I think, Pensacola, Florida. You know, he had been, if you guys follow him on social media, he was in San Diego, but now he's down there in Florida with the alligators. So Ryan, what's up, man? Thanks for being here.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm sure a lot of people know who you are. You've been on Bigger Pockets. You have very popular social media platform. You got your business CCF. You guys see in the background if you were watching it there on YouTube. So if people don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about you, where you come from, and how you got started in real estate, really.
Yeah. So kind of, I think how we got somewhat well known, we closed on 150 units off market direct to seller in 2 years. And then I also own Call Porter. We're a US based answering service for investors and agents. And then Ballpoint Marketing is our direct mail business. And then CCF is kind of our mastermind group. So, you know, elevator pitch, I'm 27, self-employed, run multiple 7-figure businesses. My goal was always just to kind of be able to like come and go as I please. And that's what we've built. None of my companies are in Florida, and here I am. So
yeah, no, that's awesome. And full disclosure, I am in Ryan's CCF group, but I had been following him before I got into CCF, kind of knew about him, and but I didn't know his full story. It's pretty cool what you've been able to create. And the interesting thing is, you didn't come from like a bunch of money or anybody that you knew in real estate, right? Like he's told us these stories about, you know, struggling to pay the credit card bills. So let's go back, because you said you're only 27, which I'm a little jealous because I'm a ripe old age of 33 now.
I'm dreading the 3-0. I hate getting older. And I'm like, that feels like that feels like the 30 milestone of like, oh, I'm 21, except for at 30, you don't get any other added benefits.
No extra benefits except, you know, just looking
that much closer to an AARP card.
Dude, I'm telling you, it was like mentally hard for me. My wife was all about it. She was like happy, excited to get into her 30s. And I was like, no, I'm not, because now they just start clicking by. The kids come, years going by, 40 is going to be here before too long. So really what it does for me though, is it puts me in a state of like, listen, the last 10 years flew by. And if I don't do stuff now, the next 10 years are going to fly by. And all of a sudden I'm going to be mid 40s, closer to retirement. If I don't like get my stuff together, you need to like think bad things are going to happen, or you're just going to be stuck in a rut. So, which is part of the reason why I joined your group and kind of trying to expand my real estate horizon. So let's go back to when you got started in real estate. I think in your early 20s, I think before, what did you do before real estate?
Oh gosh. I did car warranty sales. I was the, are you aware your car warranty is about to expire? So I started in that full time when I was 17. I was like homeschooled from 8th grade on, but didn't technically like graduate. So I don't have a diploma or a GED or anything. But yeah, started in that full time when I was 17. I was killing it when I was like 17, 18. I was good at it. I was making a lot of money. My first month, like post tax, my check was like 15 G's. And, I was not humble about it at all. I like moved out of my parents' house and was like, you know, movers will be here on Saturday kind of a thing. But it got like harder and harder in that industry to keep making the same level of money. So my last year in that industry, like pre-tax, I made like 22K.
Okay. So your first, you were making a check that was like 15 grand in a month after taxes, and then it just crashed. It wasn't doing well.
Yep. Yeah, no, the owners in the industry realized they didn't need to pay as much as they were, and it just kind of got harder and harder. So my wife and I kind of had this thing where like when we first got married, money wasn't a problem. It was like, where do you want to go on vacation? What do you want to do? And then it got to the point of like, okay, how do we pay rent? So it was kind of this like flip from, I think, of how a lot of couples do it. Fortunately for me, she's like the best woman on the face of the earth. and wasn't like weird about that. Wasn't like, well, I need to go shopping. I mean, she's like super, super frugal. I think it was probably harder on me out of the two of us.
Yeah, and I kind of relate to that, right? Because I've had like a decently high paying job and as being a lineman, as my listeners know, and then I left that to go more full-time real estate.
Yep.
And so it's like starting from the ground up. And so now it's like we've literally been able to buy almost anything we want. I'm not buying a Ferrari, Ryan, okay, but I've bought plenty of trucks and other houses and vacations and stuff. And now I'm going to like, okay, we need to like look at our grocery bill.
What time is Aldi open?
Yeah, not that we need to, but mentally it's hard, right?
Yeah.
So I definitely relate to what you're saying there. And it's funny now, the car warranty sales don't even have people on it. It's just a pre-recorded. We are calling to see if to let you know your car warranty has expired.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably forward that call 20 times a day.
Fortunately, back when I was doing it, it was all direct mail and radio leads. So I wasn't like having to cold call or anything. That'd be horrible.
Yeah, definitely that. So, well, that brings us to like kind of what you do now. But before I jump there, so you're doing that. What made you get started in real estate?
Yeah. So probably every other guest you've ever interviewed, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
I was not happy at my job, and a coworker of mine had like done this whole like wholesaling real estate investing thing and was like, hey, check out this book. And then I read it and I was like, yeah, like my parents were very like poor dad, very, lived to pay the bills. They weren't like above their means or anything, but it was very like paycheck to paycheck. If they made more money, they spent it kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was super eye-opening for me, just this concept of like not trading time for dollars and like your money going and making you more money.
Yeah, totally. And this was in what, 2016 when you kind of got the idea?
I went full time in 2016. So this was probably like 2014, 15.
Okay, 2014, 15. You said
I was 20, maybe just turned 21.
All right. And then why did you decide to go like the wholesaling route as opposed to fix and flips or some other type of just buying long-term rentals right off the bat?
Easy answer. I had no money. So I'd stumbled on a thread on Bigger Pockets about wholesaling, about finding good deals. And as somebody who'd done a lot of sales, that kind of resonated with me. So there was a guy named Jerry Puckett that I bought my first batch of mail from. They're yellow letters. I actually split it with a coworker who also read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I couldn't afford my half. So my half went on a credit card I didn't tell my wife about. And it was like $2,500, $3,000 we spent on marketing. 30, 45 days later, we got our first deal. After paying back our marketing, we made like 10 grand. So yeah, it was one of those, like, I'd proved the concept, and that was I learned so much on that first deal. You can go find my horrible Bigger Pockets questions of like, I have no money, but somewhat good credit. What do I do? Kind of stuff. On that first deal, I connected just all the dots of like how the contracts work, what a title company is, how earnest money's handled. And then, the other eye-opening piece, I was making 22 grand a year and we made 10,000 in like a weekend. And it was like, what am I doing with my life? So that was kind of my initial like foray. And then it was kind of a side hustle for probably about a year. I was really fortunate in that my general manager at the car warranty company I worked at also owned like a vape shop that was like his side hustle that he had employees in. So I could be like, hey, money's calling. And he'd be like, oh yeah, you're good. And just let me clock out. Like, would just leave me alone. So it was great. It would be like, I'm not going to miss this call to take one of yours. I don't know why they didn't fire me. But did that for about a year. And then my wife and I actually moved from St. Louis to Indianapolis for her grad school. And I tried working from home. I tried doing like credit card processing sales, and that was horrible. And we had like $3,000 in our bank account, $3,000 a month in bills. And I was like, hey, I think I'm going to try to just like do this whole real estate thing as my full-time gig. And haven't looked back since.
That's awesome. And I like what you mentioned, that you didn't have the money to buy your first half a mailer, so you put on a credit card. And I think you made a post on Instagram talking with Dave Ramsey. And if you would have followed his steps, you would probably still be broke. And
it wasn't even like that post. I had like a love-hate relationship with American Express my first like year or two in business,
Yeah.
that it would be like, you know, they'd want $15,000. And I'm like, where am I gonna need $15,000? And that would like light a fire up under my rear to go get some deals done, to go follow up on leads. So it was, I'm not going to pretend it was fun. But they were kind of like my startup capital, so to speak. So a lot of people are like, well, how'd you do it? And I'm like, I'll tell you how I did it. I don't necessarily endorse how I did it, but
Yeah.
my choice was sink or swim, and I was going to figure it out one way or another.
Totally. And the thing about that is there's multiple different types of people. And if you're the type of person that's like, you're content, you kind of like your job, you don't really want to like, you're okay not ever being really rich, or that's not part of your ambition, right? You're just happy and content. And I think like the way Dave Ramsey goes about it or teaches people is great. You know what I mean? If you got a steady job, if you have any other type of ambition at all to ever leave your social class or try to like, buy a certain car or buy a certain type of house, something, that's not the way to do it, I don't think. And I have this argument with one of my friends, good friends, and they don't make a ton of money, but they want to buy a rental property. They've been wanting to buy a rental property for 5 years now, and they're not going to buy one until they can pay cash for it. And I always thought like, dude, like in 2 years, I bought 12 units. And they pay me more than that one rental property that you guys are trying to save up for. It's going to take you guys 15 years to save that money. So, it's good for some, but I would say most people listening to the show kind of understand that, hey man, take the risk when you can and make
Yeah,
it
I mean,
happen.
I think as long as you're smart about it, I mean, my biggest thing, I'm always looking for assets that cash flow in areas that I believe are likely to appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
So, you don't want to just go buy hoodie stuff that the value's diving every month. You don't want to buy stuff that doesn't cash flow, that you're hoping it'll just go up in value and you can save it, you can sell it for more. So it is kind of like I think a balance there, but yeah, I'm all about leverage, obviously. So
Yeah, totally. Okay, so in your first couple of years, you're kind of doing it as a side hustle. 2016, you kind of went full time. How many deals did you guys do 2000, or did you do 2016, 17, 18?
So 2016, I did 6. And it's funny because if I knew what I know now, I would have done so much more. But I did a lot of busy work. I wasted a lot of time, a lot of like, well, let me be on Bigger Pockets for 5 hours a day instead of like, let me go make some offers. 2017, I did 74 wholesale deals. So the
Dang.
big change there was in 2016, I had one buyer who kind of sucked, honestly. If he didn't want a deal, I was like, well, it's not a deal. So I started networking in 2017. I found better buyers. I also got super consistent in my marketing, which is fun to say, but was not fun to do. Because I read Grant Cardone's 10X and I was like, I did 6 deals. What if I could do 50? I didn't even have the balls to 10X it. I was like, let's do 50, not 60. 60 is too many. So I just backed in the numbers. I mean, back then I would send 2,000, 2,500 pieces of mail to get a deal. So I realized 52 weeks in a year, I got to do 2,500 pieces of mail a week. And, that was fun when I had money. And then when I didn't, it was like, I kind of want to skip this week. And ultimately, if I'm being honest, I didn't even have to stick to that schedule because there's kind of like an economies of scale to it. It got to a point that I had more leads than I could personally work. So we did have to slow down. But yeah, we ended up doing 74 deals that year.
Okay. So were you doing all those deals by yourself, or at what point did you bring on like a acquisition manager or somebody to kind of help you
Good,
run those deals?
good question. I want to say probably tail end of 2017 was when my first acquisitions manager started. But I had somebody who I reverse wholesaled to a lot. Guy's name's Brett Snodgrass, runs a podcast called Simple Wholesaling. Super solid dude. He bought all like my low end stuff and made it super easy for me. So him and I did a ton of deals together. I'd go look at a house, send him pictures. He'd tell me what he wanted to pay and I'd try to get it done for less. So I did a lot of that as well, but, yeah, it was probably end of 2017 before I had like my first acquisitions guy.
Okay. I know a lot of people get started in the wholesale business or whatever type of real estate they're getting started in. They kind of like get their feet wet. They do a little bit. But not very many people can scale. I mean, as not nearly as much as what you did, but even like doubling to the next year.
Yeah.
what do you think were like the key factors that you were able to do that? Was it just, I can hear some people in the audience saying, well, it's probably because it's 2017 in Indianapolis.
Well, he was special.
Yeah,
You
there's
know?
something, the economy still wasn't what it is today. The problem with that is that there was people in 2015 saying that they're going to stop buying because the
Well,
market's
I
at
mean,
the top.
in January, I did 8 off-market deals.
In
So
2021.
yeah, like literally last month.
Yeah.
We got, I think we're at 3 or 4 so far this month. We're halfway through the month, and 2 of those are apartment complexes. So deals are out there. You just got to go out and get them. But I would say the reason I feel like most people aren't able to scale, it's more work than I think they initially think.
Mhm.
It's really fun to like set up a brand, drop marketing, start to get calls, but it's that like somebody's told you no 5 times and you're going to call them back for the 6th. So
Yeah.
it's that, like that follow up is where your money is really made, and then not prejudging your leads. One belief I have that a lot of people in the industry think is totally wrong, which, great, works for them. My goal is to run as many appointments as possible. So with our Indianapolis staff, we don't do the whole like, hey, Justin, ballpark, would you be willing to sell your house for half of what you think it's worth? No, tire kicker, next call. Like, our approach is, if you have equity, which we know you do because we mailed a list with equity, and you want to sell, we'll go meet with you. So there's weeks that my guys in Indianapolis now run 30, 40 appointments.
Jeez, that's awesome.
I pay a
Okay.
lot in mileage.
Yeah, I bet. So I think the part of it is like the sex appeal of having like this big company that's doing lots of deals, but like we forget, or people don't realize, like the in between from doing your first couple of deals to then scaling it to the next part. It's like, okay, just because you got a deal and maybe you made 20 or 30 grand, doesn't mean you can sit back and hang out. Now you got to do more deal, or do all the work to get the next deal 30 or 45 days down the road. Which I know you talk about quite a bit, and doing the monotonous stuff, like pulling the leads, like pulling the list, like sending it to the mail house or send it to your cold caller. Like that stuff gets boring, and it's like sitting on your computer. Like me, I'm in my bedroom, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it gets tiring, but
I mean, I'm in a front room in my house that we made. This is like, if I zoomed out, you'd be like, oh, he needs to clean his office. No, you're right. It's a lot of monotony. I think you also have to be willing to not act like you've made it. It can be tempting to get a $30,000 check and go buy a Rolex, right? And be like, I'm successful. I didn't buy my first fun car until like multiple years into the business. And even then I was like, oh, I don't know. Like, should I do this? But I mean, that's the whole reason I got into real estate. So, I think a lot of where new wholesalers mess up is they like to spend the money they're making too fast. And I tend to look at it more of like, how can I put this back into the business to get a larger return?
Mhm.
If I'm spending 2,500 bucks, $3,000 to get a deal, and I make 10, in my mind, I'm like, cool, that's 3 more deals. Not, I made $10,000 this month, bottle service, right? Like, it's just, I think you've got to be willing to live like you're broke for a little bit, even when you're not. I mean, like, I'll be blunt, I drive a Ferrari, but like, outside of that, my wife and I are not flashy people.
Well, and you have multiple 7-figure businesses, so you can afford to have multiple Ferraris, but you only have one. So it's like,
Well, and even then I was like, should I do this? Because it's that like, that the funny thing actually though, like, you get into some of these high end cars, and my car is now worth more than what I paid for it.
that's crazy.
So like, I'm up 10%.
What is it
Um,
exactly? It's a
it's a Ferrari 488. So
okay,
now, if I'd bought it new, the guy who bought the car before me was an idiot. He paid 310 and sold it for 200.
right.
So, but it's interesting. Like, I'll probably lose less money on that car than somebody who goes out and buys a new Corvette right now.
Hmm.
So,
And you can take that with everything you buy, right? Like, we're not always talking about Ferraris or just real estate, but my friends and family kind of know me. I go through a lot of vehicles, whether it's trucks or my wife's cars or dirt bikes or whatever. And they're always like, how do you get so lucky and you never seem to lose that much money, or you make money on them? I'm like, well, I sell them because I only buy them knowing that I can sell them. The only cars I buy is stuff that I know other people are going to want. So I might go buy it and I might sell it a year later. But I generally, most of the time, I end up either breaking even or making a little bit, and I get to drive it for a year. So that's just a good mindset to have for.
I'm the same way. I like to try things. I'm already like looking at other stuff, and my wife's like, "You were supposed to keep this for like a while." I'm like, "Babe, it's been like 6 months." Like, come on, we're up. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about it. Like houses I buy, I'm like, I'm not going to buy that house because I don't think I can resell it. But this one, let's just do it because I know I can get out easy. So let's go back to the wholesaling business and the rental properties. Why go direct to seller? Like a lot of people, they want to go direct to seller, they can't, or they just want to go on market, whatever's easiest. But why do you like going direct to seller? What's the point?
So my biggest pet peeve with the real estate niche right now, everybody's an investor, everybody's a flipper, yet none of them ever have any deals, right? So it's kind of this like, I think particularly in a hot market, you can't find the kind of deals I'm finding on the market. And people are like, well, why would somebody sell it to you? There's all kinds of reasons. It's not financial desperation. I've got a lot of people that are stupidly well off that just don't want to have to deal with the hassle. We did a deal in Louisville a couple months ago, bought the house for 300. We listed it for 365. It got bid up to 394. We didn't even remodel it, right? That property on the MLS sold for 394. You wouldn't have got that deal for 300. And that's just one example like that. We had a duplex that we were into for like in the 90s. We listed it in like I think low 110s. It got bid up to 150 last week. You're not going to find that deal. You're going to find that deal for 150, not the 90 I got it for. So, it's kind of like, what was that old expression of like high school? It's like sex. Like everybody thinks everybody else is doing it more often than they are. It's kind of how I view like deals with real estate investors. Everybody thinks that everybody else is doing all these deals when they're all like, yeah, my realtor hasn't brought me. I can't wait for a crash is my favorite phrase. That just means they're not good at marketing.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's especially true now with social media, right? Like everybody has their best life on social media, which I think you're good at, like showing people like the goods and the bads and like where you messed up and things like that. So if you guys haven't, check out his YouTube channel. It obviously has lots of good stuff on there. So yeah, motivated sellers doesn't always have to be somebody in financial distress, but you're never going to know what deal you get until you try to go to them. So that's why I like going direct to seller.
Well, I think the mindset shift that investors have that doesn't make sense to me. A lot of investors view it like they're gambling or throwing money away. Marketing is only gambling if you don't understand what you're doing, or if you're not getting like good advice, or you're not following something that's worked for somebody else. But from like an ROI perspective, my typical cost to find a property that I don't keep, just a wholesale deal, about $3,000. Our average profit is right at 15. Show me somewhere else that I can invest $2,500 and turn it into 15 grand in a quarter. Now that's our historical average. So I had a deal last week we made $1,000 on. I had another one we made 30 on. So it really kind of like runs the gamut, but I get a kick out of investors will have no problem paying a wholesaler a $10, $15, $20, $30,000 wholesale fee because there's no risk, but won't spend $2,500 to go find that deal without that markup on it.
Totally. Yeah. Well, because they're buying GameStop, right? It's like, just go do it.
Or like Dogecoin
or something like that. Yeah.
Bro, I know real estate investors that spent their entire day when the GameStop stuff hit trying to figure out how to buy GameStop. Yeah. And I'm like, focus on your own stuff. Even like the whole Dogecoin thing. I'm in a car group, car guys. One of the guys who runs it is not a real estate guy. And like his entire feed has been about like Dogecoin. And I'm like, bro, you know nothing about this. You're just like, you put some money into it, it's gone up, and you're like, I hope it keeps going.
So, how does it go up? I don't know, but it's going up.
Yeah, exactly.
I got caught in that too, not with GameStop, but I happened to just buy AMC the week before it went up, just because I thought, okay, well, economy's open back up. I have this little, I got a credit card that gives me rewards back into a stock account. Because I always thought, well, maybe if I can, increase the return on those rewards, it's free money that's cash back. Anyway, so I put like $6,000 into AMC, and then I just happened to look at my stock account the day it went to like 20. I was like, whoa, this is amazing, right? It went from $6,000 to 26 grand. I made 20 grand in like a couple of days. And then my dumb ass was like, let me see if I can play this a little bit. So I spent a couple hours like buying and selling and lost like 5 grand in my 20 grand profit, sold it. And I was like, I'm out of here. I'm sticking to what I know best. You know what I mean? It's kind of funny.
Yeah. I mean, I'd done that with some of the cryptocurrency stuff. I think it's like the fear of missing out thing. Like everybody's doing it. I want to do it. So I had like 75 grand into it, and I didn't really know what I was doing. It would go up, it would go down, but overall I was trending up. And, I did well on it for the most part. I mean, I made money, I'll be blunt, but there were some things I bought that my money got halved, and it was like, so for me, it was one of those like, okay, one of my favorite quotes is from Tony, was the founder of Zappos. It's Hosea, passed away recently, but one of his quotes is, don't invest in what you don't understand. And I was like, you know what? Even if this is the next best thing, if I'm going to play with it, I need to take the time to learn it. And I'm not going to do that right now. So I cashed out. Totally. I might listen to this podcast a year from now and hate my life, but personal decision I made that I'm comfortable sticking with.
Totally. Yeah, I get it. I cashed out all my stock stuff at the end of last year. Just said, I'm just going to go full in because I don't understand it. You know what I mean? I only had like maybe 200 grand in there, but still that's quite a bit. And I cashed it out because I'm like, I don't understand it. But back to the real estate thing. So in your business, you're going direct to seller. The way you get most of those leads, there's lots of different ways, right? You can cold call, you can text, you can mail, you can door knock, drive for dollars. I think your preferred way is obviously mailing. So tell me the difference between mailing and cold calling. I guess it'd be actively looking for leads versus reactively or something like that.
So I do direct mail. I do search engine optimization, like trying to get things, basically playing Google's algorithm. I do Facebook ads. I do pay-per-click. I think that's it. So I've done cold calling in the past. I had a deal we made 6 figures on that came from cold calling. For me, the difference between the two, cold calling for me always felt a little sketchy. The leads always felt like I was chasing a fox, so to speak, of like, this person's like, oh, I don't know who you are. And it was kind of this like, no, like, I promise I'm legit. It to me felt like I needed to sell them a lot more on kind of the credibility aspect. On top of that, I hate getting cold calls personally. And on the direct mail side, we put our Carrot website on the bottom of all of our pieces, and like over 60% of our leads go to our website first and then call our website tracking number off of our direct mail. So this is somebody who's gone to my website, read through it, and decided, yeah, I'm interested in doing business with these guys. So I would say it's just a little bit less sketchy in that they're not trying to run away the entire time, and we're not trying to run them down. So
yeah, totally. And cold calling, you might have a lot more leads that come into your system, and it might work better in some markets and mailings works better in other markets. The difference is the quality of the lead. If somebody has your letter that you send them and they're calling into you, then there's like a reason they're putting forth the effort to like inquire about you buying their property. Whereas cold calling, you're calling them and they're like, I mean, I guess I'll sell it, if you give me the right price.
If the offer's right. One of my favorite things is to marry the two. So on things that I really want, so apartment complexes, self-storage, mobile home parks, that kind of stuff, particular asset classes that I'm into, we'll go through and follow up with a phone call. Hey, Justin, I sent you a letter last week. Just wanted to see if you got it. I hadn't heard back from you. We've had people being like, wow, you guys are serious. We had one guy that was like, hey, I appreciate that you took the initiative to pick up the phone. Right. So it's not something we do often. Like, I literally sent my guy who does my calls for me a list of 40 people this week of like, bro, I want these, like, go get me a couple of these, kind of a thing. So I'm not loading, 10,000 records in a dialer, but I've got friends that run teams of cold callers that do really well with it. It's just not my thing. I try to do stuff that's ethical, legal, and scalable. Cold calling, you can get in hot water, right? Are you abiding by the do not call list? Most investors aren't. Most investors remove like the litigators, hoping they don't get sued. So for me, it was that like, I don't want to earn money, but always be looking over my shoulder. Same reason I don't do like SMS or RVMs. I won't lie. I've done them in the past, but it didn't sit right with me that I had to set up a Google Voice to another fake number, to a fake name, to a voicemail and be like, no, I'm just a private individual. When I have this, company, I'm just trying not to get sued in case that's what the person's looking for.
Yeah, totally. And the people going to your website definitely does work off the mailers. I just had a lead a couple days ago that I mailed this lady's sister like a couple months ago. And then her sister, the lady that ended up inquiring on my website, her sister gave her the mailer and said, hey, these people try to buy my house, maybe they'll buy yours. So she went to my website and typed it in. I called her and she said, oh yeah, I got your info from your website, but my sister gave me the mailer that had your website on it. So It definitely works. And what you kind of teach, this isn't like a sales pitch for Ryan's group. I'm just telling you what I've learned. But what you teach people is, setting up all your retargeting ads, Facebook, Instagram, your website, with the mailers, all of it together kind of builds your total presence that shows people that you're more serious, which builds credibility and will help you get leads that way. So definitely.
Yeah. I mean, they'll see reviews and things of that nature where like when I first started, when I was doing cold calling and stuff like that, I would have to like sell people on the fact that I was legit. Like I remember one guy, I had to give him HUDs of other properties that I was on title as having purchased. I had to give him my articles of organization so he could see that I was registered with the state in order to get a deal done. I don't run into that anymore. People don't ask me for proof of funds.
No.
People aren't like, we send in EMD, but they're very rarely calling to see if we even sent it in because our online presence, our branding, all that good stuff.
Totally. Okay. Yeah. And now we could dive into all kinds of different stuff, like how you get the leads and but I've done other episodes on that and it's pretty easy to find. Again, like Ryan's YouTube channel has tons of info on that. The next kind of thing I wanted to touch on, which I think the sex appeal part of business and wholesaling, which people like in real estate, is you're able to grow the business, grow other businesses. And then what you've been able to do is kind of like step away from it and work more on the marketing and personal branding side of it. How do people what does it take to get to that point? And then why is like the personal branding and stepping out of your business kind of important, or why do you think it's important?
So on the getting it where it's like passive for you, right? You still have to lead the company. You still have to lead the business because it's ultimately, you're only going to be as strong as your staff. And in the past, I'll be super honest, I've made the mistake of like, well, let's hire it out. They'll do it. I'm going to go kick it at the beach. And, you can get away with that for a couple weekends, but stuff starts to slip. I think the expression is like, when the cats are away, the mice play kind of a thing. Like you do have to still, even if it's virtually, be checking numbers, be checking KPIs, listening to calls. So I wouldn't say it's passive, but it's more like 4-hour, 8-hour work week kind of a thing. So the biggest key there is who's your number two. In my real estate portfolio, it's a guy named Noah Gilliam, who's great. I literally trust Noah with my life. Even still, there's times that I've got to call him out on stuff or vice versa. My brother, Justin, runs my call center and my direct mail business, but in our call center, we've got a girl named Cassie Jones, who is effectively our manager for it, who's an absolute badass. That business wouldn't exist without her. So it's really comes down to the quality of your people. In the past, I made the mistake of trying to go too hands off too quick when I didn't have kind of that proven operator that was there. And then it was like stuff kind of started to fall apart. So I will say the caveat with that, you've got to do it steadily. It's like in Indianapolis to build it there, right? I have to be there on a daily basis. I lived there for 4 years. It wasn't like all right, I'm leaving in 6 months. You guys need to pay me $100K a month, like deuces. It was like, as I was hiring people, hey, this is the vision. This is what we're going to do. This is how this is going to look. It was like, that was always the plan with it. So I hope that answers what you were looking for there.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And, I follow, I think you do as well, like Andy Frisella. And I remember one of his podcasts was talking about it's the entrepreneurial life of getting to that magical, sexy place that like Andy's at or Ed Milet's at. And quite honestly, where you're at for a lot of people.
I wouldn't give me that much credit. I'm
not quite on the same level, but I mean, you're 1,000 times farther along than 99% of real estate investors out there. It's a slow J curve, right? It's like it takes forever and you got to put in that work and find the right people and build it. Then all of a sudden it'll just out of nowhere, it'll start taking off. And then as you more experience and do it for longer, it just like excels vertically, infinitely quick.
I'm sure it's like what you've seen with your podcasts. You release an episode and 4 people watch it and you're like, oh, there was so much effort into that. Yeah. And that's kind of how like YouTube's been for me. I'm like, I've got a full-time videographer. We drop a video, it gets 300 views. And I'm like, cool. Right. But it's, for me, I think it's just that like, you've got to always remember why you're doing it, why you started. Mm-hmm. So that's always been the focus for me. Like, I don't care if I drop a YouTube video and 20 people watch it. If those 20 people do something with it, great. But it's kind of that same thing. Like there was, Callporter, my answering service, on the first $1 million they made, I paid myself $36,000. That's not sexy. That's not glamorous. Right. You know, you've got to be willing to like, I think one of the biggest problems I see, we kind of talked about it earlier, but a lot of these guys will do a deal and flex and spend it all. And it's like, you can't pretend you've made it because you got a little bit of a cash injection. You got to, you know, stay humble, stay in your own lane. And I mean, I've made mistakes about this. I've posted about it. I financed a Range Rover back in 2016 when I was dead broke because I wanted to look like I wasn't. And my mortgage payment was $540. My Range Rover payment was $660. Stupid. Right. And, you know, I can look back at that in hindsight and be like, oh, well, I was so dumb. But in the moment, it was like, this is what I need to be successful. I need to look a little better. Than it's like, that's not how it works.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And depends on what you're in it for. You know, if you're into it for the long term, then reinvesting and just building the business. I like the idea of just like building the business to a point where you can pay yourself a small amount to cover your bills, to be happy. But if you're happy with the way the business is going, then you don't have a problem like putting all the extra money into it to try to build a bigger snowball.
I'm gonna push back on that a little bit. You've also got to take care of your family and pay your family. Yeah. Because it's easy as a business owner to justify putting money back into the business instead of pulling it out. And one of the best pieces of advice I've ever been given came from Brent Daniels, runs a coaching program called TTP. Actually helped me. CCF used to be CCCF. And he was like, bro, too many letters. But one of the pieces of advice he gave me absolutely like kicked my teeth in and did it in front of my wife, which made it all that much more fun. He was like, dude, you're not paying yourself enough. You're not taking home enough money. This is unacceptable. Like you're being disrespectful to your family. And it was like, at the time I was like, well, I'm putting stuff back in and I'm building. I'm so glad I took his advice and set the business up in such a way that I can pull out $30,000 a month if I want to. Because COVID hit and it was like, we've got cash, we've got reserves, we're good. If I hadn't had that conversation with him, I would have been on my, I pay myself $3,000 a month BS and been like, oh my gosh, I hope nothing changes because I have this such a small margin that I'm playing with. So I'd be careful on the like investing back into the business piece because a lot of the times that's just an excuse to not work harder. So you're not making more money.
I guess that's true. And I kind of fall into that too when, you know, I've always been frugal and didn't want to like take the vacations. I didn't want to like take the kids to the ski resort because it's going to cost me, even though I'm making plenty of money. I was like scared because I wanted to use that money for something else. But as I'm getting older, my kids are getting older so quickly. Mm-hmm. If anybody out there has the kids and you realize that you got to like put some time into that. So I definitely understand that. Real quick, you touched on the YouTube side of it and then the social media marketing. I kind of wanted to dive into that for a minute.
Sure.
Why is that important, or why are you going that route as opposed to just staying in the business?
Good question. I think it's a relationship thing for me. Mm-hmm. Of like, I want the people we work with to know who it is behind this and like what the heart behind it is. And I mean, to be blunt, like my personal brand to an extent is what's kind of funneled the growth of our companies, but I've also spent almost $500,000 on Facebook ads as well. So it's like, it didn't just grow for me. I had to be the one driving it and doing that. But I don't know. I think for me, it was kind of just the like, I think people are going to work with who they like. And if people get to know me, great. They're maybe more likely to work with my companies. And I also think it's a little bit harder to inspire people from behind a brand, because this was like a huge struggle for me. I'm pretty outgoing if you meet me, but I'm not somebody who's like, yo, let me get up on that stage. Justin can tell you guys how long I've been telling him I do this podcast for. But I think you can't adequately inspire people if you're not showing your personal life to it. Like, you know, I can get up when I want. I can go where I want. I can spend as much time as I want with my son. We have a nanny. We don't need one. I could just stay home with him full time if I want. There's days actually that she doesn't even come in just so I can do nothing but hang out with him. So, you know, it's hard to show that through a company and do it in a way that's genuine. Is just kind of my, you know, it's real easy to like, oh, look at this client I have. They made so much money, but that's not really inspiring. That feels more like you're just like showing off, is kind of my take on it.
The personal connection is important. Totally.
Yeah.
I totally agree. So what are some tips or advice you can give to somebody out there that's kind of like wanting to build their social media presence? Maybe they want to start their own personal brand, something like that. Like, what should they be doing? How should they be doing it?
Yeah. So I'm not going to pretend like I'm the expert on this, because this is all stuff I'm still working on and learning. But the first piece of advice I can give you is be intentional. So when you're putting out a piece of content, you need to think about who you think is going to read it and what you're hoping they get from it and what sort of action they're hoping to take. So if it's, you know, they share it with a friend or they comment below, you know, you got to think that through. If you just do like, oh, I made $10,000 today, it's like, okay, good for you. But if it's, hey, I made more today than I used to make in a year, and I just want you to know this is possible, you're inspiring hope, right? So that's one. Another piece of advice I got from a guy named Garrett J. White. It's a little out there, but it's be real, be raw, be relevant. So initially my content was all very real estate focused. I made this much from this deal that I found in these ways. And I remember when I hired my videographer, he was like, bro, online, I can't even tell if you're a person. Like there's like, you're not in this at all. And so it was that sharing like the, hey, I've been depressed before. I've been broke before. I've wanted a way out and not known what that looked like before. You know, I've turned to drugs or alcohol instead of my family or loved ones because things weren't going well. Like, I think it's having that level of authenticity that people can resonate and connect with. It's uncomfortable. I'm not going to lie. I remember the first time I talked about like being in debt, and I was like, people are going to know that I haven't always just been like, I haven't made it. And I had some early success early on where I kind of got this like boy wonder thing that I also had to deal with, of like, doesn't matter how old I am, what I did is still relevant. So be real, be raw, be relevant. And then last would just be consistent. In my experience, like, you've got to post at least once a day on whatever platform it's on. YouTube's a little different. We hit YouTube 3 times a week, and I try to hit Instagram 3 times a day. Doesn't always happen though.
As a story or as a post?
I try to do posts, and then stories, I just try to show what my day looks like. So, hey, I'm pulling a list. Hey, I'm driving the car. Hey, I'm hanging out with my kid. Hey, I'm at the gym. I mean, it's like, I'm just showing. My stories are very like, I'm not like, okay, what are they going to get out of this? What are they thinking? Unless it's like me talking at the camera, it's more just like, hey, this is what my life looks like. You know, my kitchen is dirty, just like yours, right? Kind of a thing. So I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's good content. I mean, that's good information. There's my daughter coming in, if everybody sees her. Kinley.
Hi, sweetie.
Hi. Bye. You going? Sorry, everybody. Love you. Okay.
You're good. I don't know if you guys heard my son crying for the first 5 minutes. So I'm hoping this mic is as good as it's supposed to be, but we'll find out.
Yeah, it's okay. See, it's being raw. Everybody knows, like, it's still a family here.
Yeah.
So where's Ryan going in the future? Like, what's your goals in the future? What's it look like for your companies? Are you expanding, going into a different market?
Good question. So I have some liquidity goals I'm trying to hit this year that I won't name because they're none of people's business. That, and I'm weird about money. So there's that. I would say long-term, I'm looking to consult in startups for equity, kind of like the Tim Ferriss model of, I'll teach you how to build the brand. I can bring the advertising, the systems, that kind of stuff. And then I'm also still buying properties and trying to add them to the rental portfolio. I'm looking for stuff down here in Florida. It's a little bit tricky. The rent to cost ratio is a little bit out of whack. Stuff tends to sell for a price that it doesn't make a ton of sense to buy it for as a rental. And then I'm also looking at parking some cash and kind of some syndication type stuff. So, you know, I think it's great to wholesale or to flip, but you have to do that to put it into something else. You know, it's great if you make $100,000 a year, you know, wholesaling or flipping real estate. It's actually very doable. But if you're doing it just to live, my big thing, I hate always needing the next deal, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, fortunately, we're not there anymore, but I've been there. I remember I called my dad and I was like, I get these giant checks and then they're gone. And it's like, I'm still paycheck to paycheck. My paychecks are just huge. And it was this kind of like I was doing a deal a quarter, a deal every month kind of a thing. So I think that's where I'm headed. I kind of thought I'd have this phase in my 30s of like, what do I want to do with my life? And I've hit that a lot sooner where it's kind of like, I wasn't really expecting this. I've just kind of like figuring out what I want, what makes me happy. You know, I don't need to own, I'm not like I'm going to be a billionaire guy. Yeah, if it happens, great. But I'm more interested in impact, you know, the causes and charities that I'm involved with. How can I leave a lasting imprint? And, you know, have it not just be about another Ferrari or another vacation or another Rolex. Like, I don't know. I would say I'm kind of figuring out that meaning piece of my life and figuring out what I want to do. I know I want to be super present for my kids. I want to be super present for my loved ones. And I want to leave a legacy of people that I've helped find freedom, whatever that looks like to them. So
Sweet. No, that's a perfect answer. That's awesome. Well, Ryan, where can people find out more about you, your stuff that you do, and then mention one of your charities that you are into as well?
Yeah. So the big one I work with is a group called YT1. So they do, it's like anti-human trafficking. So everything from education to like rescue operations. So housing, all that kind of stuff. So they're actually the largest place we give capital to. On best way to find me, my website, ryandossi.com or Ryan Dossi on YouTube. It's all just my name. So pretty easy to find.
Perfect. Well, Ryan, that's tons of great info. If anybody has any questions or anything, feel free to reach out to Ryan or his website. It'll all be in the show notes. Find him on Instagram, YouTube, all that stuff. And Ryan, thanks for being here, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. This was a blast.
All right.